Part 2. The coming confrontation. She knows something is going on. She has messaged and approached me several times asking if I'm okay, telling me I love you and I'm here for you. I've done my best to dodge the questions until the right time comes, which will be this coming Friday. I told her I'm not feeling good and that we should set some time to talk without the kids interrupting every 5 minutes. She arranged for the kids to go away next Friday. I'm pretty sure she has no idea this is coming. I think she believes I'm either sick with something serious or confessing to something bad thing. I'm not sure whether she knows that the kids are mine, judging from the amount of effort and planning that took place between us back then, but then again, why was she so adamant about the Ancestry.com test? Maybe she was hiding something. Hell, the other man could have told her he had a vasectomy for all I know. She might also have been unaware that sperm can live up to 5 days inside the female body, so since she was tracking, she might have thought it was safe since she wasn't ovulating, but then as the next egg was released it was already under siege by the other man's swimmers. With all this in mind, I'm dreading this first talk will turn into a disaster. I can already see her crying and screaming, "No, no, 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 that can't be true," sobbing, crying, screaming, and shutting down in shock. I'm planning on bringing this up in the comments, just stating facts way I can. Her face during the first few seconds will tell me if that 1 in a trillion odd this is wrong has a chance. There's also the odd chance that she chooses to cooperate and starts answering questions. How could I prepare for those punches? They say trickle truth and telling you what they feel you should hear are bad and prolong the grief process, and I'm sure that's true. However, learning stuff one piece at a time may give you just enough time to partially process your emotions to the point where you are no longer shaken to the bone by each new revelation. I don't know, I'm probably talking stupid here. So, I ask for your wisdom and advice on how to handle this most constructively. What happens after that? Should I go? Should she go? What happens the next day? What about our daily life and obligations and commitments? How do you cope? What do you do after you drop the bomb? Do you stay silent and wait for them to start talking? Should I tell her what I feel? Would that be productive or counterproductive at this stage? Calling it off right now or waiting it out? I'm pretty confused right now. I cycle from F this SHT, I got to get out I need to run away to, but I effing love those kids to death, and I know behind all this grief and pain, there's love for her too. You just can't unlove a child, at least I can't. I want to minimize the damage to the kids, to protect them as much as possible from the coming fallout. They are innocent victims here too. I know it's common wisdom to kick out the WS in case you are calling it off, but I just can't picture myself disturbing that much the lives of my kids. Typing my kids causes me heartache, but that's how I think of them, yet I don't want to live in a dumpster with a daily 2-hour commute while I figure myself out and my next steps. I mean, grieving in a S-hole for months doesn't sound very appealing or healthy for the mind. From a legal POV, there's nothing much to do either. Around here, women usually get the house, full custody and alimony equating to at the very least 15% of the man's income per kid. Adultery is not accepted as a valid cause for divorce either. In either case, I don't really care about the house. In my eyes, the house is for the kids. Financially speaking, even though we are pretty good while together, living on my own with around 30% of my income after alimony and debt in this stupidly expensive city would subject me to substandard living conditions at least for a few years until I manage to level up. Yet, such a long-term affair with such consequences will make staying incredibly difficult too. I'm lost here. What's the common wisdom here? Any advice? Reader comment. What you have shared could be compared to getting a phone call that a close relative has been in a traffic accident and is at St. John's Hospital and asking you to get there. That's all you know. You don't know if they got the wrong number, if it's life or death, or if the relative simply needs a ride home because of a sprained foot. Your last post. It's you are looking for your car keys while phoning an undertaker to find the best price of coffins, while Googling florists for flower arrangements, while wondering what to offer at the wake. All this before knowing what you are dealing with. Original comment, you hit the nail right on the head bigger. I'm perfectly aware I'm getting way ahead of myself here, realized it right after I posted. Here's the thing about the tests taken. The test says none of the kids are mine. The test says the kids are full brothers, offspring of the same man and woman. Even though one of their samples could have been wrong, the odds of them still matching as 100% full DNA brothers are next to zero. I collected, packed, and mailed all 3 samples. My results show dozens of recognizable DNA relatives, and it's filled with people who share my family names, parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents' family names. Their results show none of this. That means the odds of my sample being processed wrong are next to zero. I realize direct-to-consumer DNA tests are nowhere as accurate as one would wish and most definitely not a replacement for a proper paternity test. However, I stand by the 1 in a trillion odds this result would be any different after a second, proper test done. I take your suggestions on how to approach my wife at heart. I'm not going to accuse her of anything. I'm keeping an open mind and still cling to hope. Reader comment. You have the result of a mid-reputable company that indicates that maybe, just maybe, one of your children isn't fathered by you. Original comment. It's actually both children. The report on the other child gives the same result as the first one. Reader comment. Isn't it perfectly reasonable to let your wife know and tell her you are willing to doubt the results rather than her word, but that you will be sending samples to a more reputable company so you have final results? Isn't it perfectly reasonable that you ask her if there is any reason you shouldn't bother sending the results? Shouldn't she be willing to put this issue to bed? Original comment. Absolutely. And that's why, even though logic points one way, I keep an open mind and am prepared to listen carefully to everything she says or doesn't say. Body language speaks volumes too. Reader comment. If I could offer one bit of advice, it would be to listen and process. Then listen more and process more. The urge in a setting like this is to vomit out the stream of conscious thoughts and feelings you have. You need to resist that urge. Instead, listen to what she has to say, critically, and ask questions based on what she says. Original comment. Thank you for this. Makes all the sense in the world. Reader comment. Another thing to think about, OP, if your wife becomes very distraught during your confrontation, you probably should have a plan to get her some support, short-term and long-term. Her family, her best friend, therapist, pastor, etc. I'm saying this for a couple reasons. Your 20-year marriage and possible affairs 10 years ago, this could hit her very hard. There have been a few stories where wives who cheated in their long-time marriages tried to hurt themselves after a confrontation like yours. Original comment. I was thinking of this last night. Yes, I need to be prepared to lay a safety net for her in the likely case this knocks her down badly. I've already started looking for trauma crisis specialists around town. Reader comment. If these aren't your kids, your situation is getting very close to beyond this forum's pay grade. You asked how bad your story would rate. Very bad. You're going to be tested like nothing else in your life. Any man might go half mad with rage and grief finding out his kids aren't his. Don't be afraid to find a good therapist to help you deal with it all. Courage to you. Original comment. Yeah. I've searched high and low and have yet to find similar stories to mine. I'm pretty sure there are tons of it out there. With the advent of direct-to-consumer DNA testing, infidelity statistics, and modern world life, there's got to be a lot of similar stories out there. I also believe this kind of scenario is among the most devastating, humiliating experiences a regular man can experience, ergo very few men are willing to share their experience online. Reader comment. Try to be as humane as you can to those 2 kids. They know you as their father. Original comment. I love those kids to death. I would give my life for them. Reader comment. My friend who traces DNA is an average person, not a geneticist or police detective. They have helped quite a lot of people. There are others like them. So many people have taken these tests, it's very likely the other man has a close relative who has taken a test. Could be an uncle, cousin. If he is married with kids, the DNA will trace back to her relative's side. The tree branches will lead back to the other man. Original comment. Thank you for your offer, Redfish. However, I'm not anywhere near ready to go that route. Not yet, at least. I'll keep it in mind depending on how things go with my wife over the next few days or weeks. Reader comment: you have stated in your post you suffer from some mental health issues. That is one more reason to get real tests, even if the evidence is as bad as it looks. If you find this situation devolves to the worst case scenario, and it could, are you going to be okay? Do you have any family or friends you can depend on? Do you have a plan for your mental health? Original comment: yes, I have dealt with anxiety, panic, and depression before. I'm very well versed in those topics. I'm a problem solver by nature, and whenever I find myself in a situation that's above me, reading, learning, and researching have been my go-to approach. I can easily recognize the early stages of depression, anxiety, and panic. It can't take me by surprise, and for years I have been at peace with the idea to have myself committed to a walk-in clinic if the situation so calls for it. My psychiatrist back then told me traditional therapy would never work with me, that unorthodox approaches were necessary. In essence, something about my brain not being traditionally wired. I'm currently seeking trauma crisis grief specialist around town for me and my wife, hoping traditional methods work on me this time around. As for family and friends to depend on, no, I have no family I can rely on for something like this. My best friend lives 3,000 kilometers away and has always been a you can't trust women kind of guy all his life. He's never been married, no kids, so I'm not sure his input would be beneficial to me. That being said, I was thinking that in the event the talks with my wife turn ugly, I could ask for 1 or 2 weeks off at work and take a road trip by myself, maybe even visiting the aforementioned friend. Reader comment: but I'm going to suggest you be kind and soft-spoken as possible. These places that use DNA tests are run by human beings, so when I say I still hope there's a tiny amount of maybe to give your wife the benefit of the doubt might make you able to breathe. Original comment: I'm keeping an open mind and even willing to hear fantasy scenarios worthy of a Korean soap opera, like my wife realizing at some point I am most likely infertile and going the donor route without telling me in order to protect my feelings. Reader comment: any recognizable names from the kids' side? You might have to FB their surnames or white pages search to find relatives who you do recognize. You want to be ahead of your wife's answers in case she lies. Original comment: yes and no. The names are far too generic and common. Think of Smith, Johnson, Miller in the States. Mine are far less common. Like I said in a previous post, 99% it's one of my 2 candidates. I know their full names. I have been able to trace one on FB and got a phone number. The other is a ghost, have found 0 traces of him online, but found a group picture with him on our pics archives. Reader comment: and the one with the most impact on the children's lives is going outside of your marriage to tell. It means that the other man might demand he have access to his children. They are your children legally because your name is on the birth certificate, but as the biological father, how much can he do to your family? Original comment: this is what terrifies me the most. I am sure she is convinced the kids are mine, and I have little to no control over what she does and who she gets involved after the revelation. From my end, I will never share with my family that I know I'm not the bio father. The risk for the kids outweighs by 1,000,000 tons any possible benefit. I would never use this information in any court proceedings in case this ends in D. Reader comment: it sounds like you have a wife who does love you now. She has probably done an awful thing in her past that may be a deal breaker for you. Just take your time and work through how you feel and what you need. Original comment: the mind-boggling thing is, I have searched high and low within myself, my memories, archives, everything, and here's the thing, our relationship has always been the same. I know she has been affair-free for at the very least 2 years. Was our relationship different 4, 5, 6, 8 years ago? No. She has always been all those good things I wrote about her in my earlier posts. A loving, caring, supportive, and connected partner. Maybe what for me felt like love, from her POV, I am just a good friend and the convenient person to be around for financial support and general lifestyle. It will take me a while to go through this. Reader comment: And don't discount the value a bit of support can have, even if it's from some internet stranger. Original comment, my man, at this moment this forum is my only form of support. Knowing that there's people out there who have gone through something similar, read you, acknowledge you, share their wisdom and good wishes means a EFF ton to me. I just finished my daily walk. In 5 minutes I'll be home. I'm nervous, but calm. She's visibly altered, saw it in her face when she was going out to drop the kids at their grandma's place. Let's see how this goes. I am likely to update until Sunday. If you are religious, send some prayers my way. Didn't think I would be back here so soon. Typing this while still fresh so I don't wake up tomorrow with half of it erased from my HDD. I'm upset. Things went far worse than I thought it would. I know I said earlier I had an open mind and was even willing to hear Korean soap opera level stories, but FFS. I was joking. Me, do you love me? Her, with all my heart. Me, why are you still with me? Her, because I love you, you are my whole life. I'm devoted 100% to you and our family, there's nowhere else I would rather be. Me, silence. Her, I'm going upstairs, or do you want me to stay here with you? It's chilly. Me, nah. Go ahead, we can keep talking upstairs, no point in us freezing here. Red alert. Not even going to ask what's going on? I'm probably going to butch quite a lot, but the general idea should still be clear. I need to have a voice recorder at hand for round 2. I have a smoke and sip some liquid valor, some 7 minutes later and she's already in bed asleep. I started by asking for an open and honest conversation. No lies. Me, already asleep? We need to talk, and I don't want to have this conversation with the kids around. Me, are you having an affair? Her, no. Me, have you had an affair? Her, no, never. Me, then who's the father of the kids? Her, you are. Me, not according to the DNA tests. Her, what DNA? Me, the one I don't share with the kids. Who's the father? Her, I did what had to be done for us to have a family. It was painful and cost me a lot of money. You have no idea the hell I went through for this. Me, what? What did you do? What do you mean? Her, what had to be done? It was planned this way. Me, I know you had an affair. It started back in that ugly patch we went through back in early 2013. With both kids not my own, I know it lasted at least 5 years. Her, I did try to start something with someone back then, but never went through with it. It was wrong and I never did it. Me, who's the father of the kids? Is it subordinate or colleague? Her, blank face. Me, what's the name of colleague's wife? Her, ex. Me, then why are you stalking ex? Her, because they are very dangerous people, you don't know how much they have hurt me. I need to keep an eye on them to make sure they are happy and doing okay so they don't ever think to get close to me again. Me, so, the father of the kids is colleague? Her, yes. Me, so, you admit to having an affair with Pierre. Why didn't you tell me so we could try IVF or a donor? Her, and go through the hell of IVF? I did what had to be done to give us a family and he was the one available. All this conversation and not a single tear, not a single I'm sorry, full poker face. What the actual F? I then talked about the grief process and the need for me to have a whole picture, a real picture, one which I could believe to go through my healing process. Then I started to bargain with her, begging her to let the truth out, to get it off her chest, to help me understand what happened. First 20-minute break to help her process. After I returned, we spent close to 10 minutes in silence, just staring at each other. In retrospect, she was clearly in shock. I didn't recognize it then. I broke the silence by begging her for the truth. She kept saying, "You don't understand how it was. I already told you." I kept pushing and she started breaking. I asked once again for the truth, or I would have to contact other man's wife to find out. And this is worrisome. Her, they are awful, bad, dangerous people. You have no idea what I went through to get her off my back. She wants to destroy our family. I didn't pay enough attention to that statement. Instead, I went bananas with the destroy our family part and lost composure. Told her she's the one who destroyed our family when she decided to spread her legs for other men. Shouldn't have said that, not at that point. Live and learn. Then I couldn't help it and went emotional. Told her about my robbed past, present, and future and how I feel, recalled in detail the happiest day of my life and how I now feel like an imposter, yada, yada. By then she was crying and telling me nonstop that I'm a good man and I'm not an imposter and I'm the only one she wanted then and there, blab blab blab. She went full meltdown when I said, I must have done something pretty awful in a past life. She couldn't stop apologizing and claiming she never meant to hurt me, that this is her worst nightmare come true. Asked her if she brought him to our house. Her no, never was very emphatic and convincing, and I chose to believe it, end of the story, for my own peace of mind. Don't go there. Look, asked her if the other man knows the kids are his, said he suspected. Asked her if she wants the other man and kid's life. She went bananas, said she hates that guy and he's a really bad person. Asked her about him being a good friend 4 years, what happened that turned him bad. She then went on to just insist on him being a POS, who enjoys hurting everyone around him, and it took her way too long to realize it. During most of the talk, she kept insisting on how beautiful and perfect our kids are and how what she did was worth it, blah blah blah. I had to keep reminding her of this not being about the kids. At some point, I reassured her of my love for her kids and my wanting to stay in their lives. I intentionally said it that way, thought it would soften her a little and encourage her to talk. It just made her cry even more. At the end of our talk, I reassured her of my love for our kids and told her no matter what I want them to suffer as least as possible. There was a mention by her on why I'm insisting on so many details that would be hurtful to me. Had to remind her that's not her choice to make. A short while I just left the room, not before begging her to think it through and come clean. I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of details. The whole talk was 2 to 3 hours long. There was a lot of back and forth. Observations. 1. She admitted to attempting to start something with someone but not going through with it back during our 2010 rough patch. 2. She's convinced of her did what had to be done for us to have a family and won't admit to an affair. 3. What had to be done was planned that way and I was never meant to find out. 4. I suspect their affair ended rather ugly, with other man's wife finding out and possibly asking for money in exchange for not exposing her. There might be pictures and videos of them together and the other man might have facilitated those to his wife, ergo that they are awful people. She wants to destroy our family. It cost me a lot of money. I truly expected this to go way different. I wasn't expecting to get the whole truth in one go, was hoping it would take me a couple of days, a week tops. Now I'm not even sure I'll ever get the whole picture. My wife is damaged, very damaged, and needs urgent psychological help. I'm getting her an appointment ASAP. As I said, the thread is already long, and I am well aware my pontifications are particularly long and most certainly don't expect anyone to keep track of everything that was said before. There have been some observations, doubts, questions, and general concerns, which will hopefully be covered in this summary. On infertility, after 1 or 2 months of trying, we went to her OBGYN to make sure everything was okay. Made sense since at the time I was 34 and she was 35, almost 36. The OBGYN has been her doc since she was a teenager, so the relationship with him was strong and he had a complete file on her. He did an echo right there and said he saw no problems on her side. He sent me for a spermogram, the test where they see the count, morphology, viability, and a bunch of other things. Went back to him to go over my results. I was there when he said, "You will never get pregnant with these results." Referred me to a urologist specializing in fertility issues. The urologist wasn't as fatalist as the OB. He said pregnancy with those numbers was very hard but could happen at any time. Life always finds a way. He ordered a few more tests and Ball's echo. Reviewing the results, there was no evident cause. His treatment plan was to wear loose underwear, quit smoking, limit the number of hours spent seating, work out a little, lose some weight, vitamins, minerals, and a couple of meds. I don't remember if he said, you should see results in 3 to 4 months or you should see improvements in 3 to 4 months. He explained the spermatogenesis cycle and everything and sent me on my merry way. Of course, I never went back because 4 to 5 months later wifey was preggo. The treatment worked, right? Right? Roll eyes. Planned SX for the purpose of procreation after those doctor visits. We got the whole kit, and I mean, the whole KIT. Tracking apps, ovulation detection strips, thermometer, expensive trying to get pregnant lube, and much more. At certain points during the month, it was like doing it in a lab and it worked, right? Sigh. On where I hang my cape and legal outlook, I have been living in Europe now for the past 25 years. Down here the state seeks the superior interest of the child in any divorce proceedings. It's pretty much like California, but on steroids. Kids born in the marriage are naturals and bio fathers have no claims as far as I know. I have a meeting with an attorney later this week. On surveillance, to be honest, at this moment I see no point. That being said, I got access to her iCloud account where I can see photos, call logs, and contacts. On her Gmail account, I can see search history and geolocation history. On her FB, chat logs. I don't have access to WhatsApp though. On my particular interest in getting help for her first yup. At this moment she is the #1 priority when it comes to getting IC. I will get her the best care I can afford because of 2 simple reasons. 1, no matter how much I love those kids or how much they love me. A child needs a mother, preferably a well-rounded, grounded, healthy mother. 2, for my selfish interest, by getting her the best care I can, I also hope that at some point she can come to terms with what she has done and maybe, just maybe, will be willing to give me my much-needed whole picture so I can chew on it, swallow, digest, and eventually archive it and move forward to a happier life. As time progresses, I keep feeling calm, but she is getting worse by the day. As someone accurately described it some 3 pages ago, now she realizes she not only destroyed my world, but hers and the kids too. I don't see her looking for forgiveness. She's way too damaged, sees no way to fix this, and is in a very deep conflict with herself. Can't even look me in the eye. She just keeps her head down and spends most of the time crying when the kids are not around. On concerns about my own well-being and need for counseling, I know, trust me. I know. Unlike my wife, I'm calm, extremely resilient, and know where I'm standing. At the moment, I'm very okay. A psychiatrist once said I'm not normal, that I process things differently. One side of my brain is stupidly more developed than the other one. Think of it like a dude with Hulk Hogan's arm on one side and Skinny Pete's arm on the other one. I'll be getting help soon. I'm well aware that at some point the right side will try to take over and I will have a safety net by then. I said in an earlier post that at some point in my life I dealt with anxiety, panic, and depression. I'm the poster child for Lexapro because my particular case was as 100% neurochemical imbalance related. My body just doesn't make enough serotonin, that's it. Meds like Lex usually take anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks to kick in. When I started it, I was a new man in less than 10 days. My body was just starving for serotonin. I do feel, however, some low-key anger. The best way I would describe it is the anger you feel after losing a lot of money on a bad trade, or maybe if you are a car guy, the anger you may feel after blowing up your engine while trying to show off at a red light, the anger you would feel after finding out your partner paid an extra $1,000 on premium high-performance air for the tires. Whenever I think of my situation and my wife, the phrase I find myself repeating on my mind is effing idiot. From all the choices and options you had, you picked the worst by far, the one I can't forgive. What a moron. In a couple of weeks tops, I'll be taking a few days off. Still undecided on where I should go. I've always found peace at sea, so that would most likely be it. About the relationship with my wife, what I said about her and our relationship in previous posts remains true. True to me, at least. There was a rough patch a few years back. Did some soul searching and can say that the rough patch started around fall 2009, became unbearable by January 2010 with the S and D words being thrown around but never actually going through with it. The rough patch started resolving by late April 2013 and took a 180 change for the better by late May. Complete night and day change. My wife clearly doesn't remember what we were fighting about, but I do, and it wasn't trivial at all. I know how relentless and hurting I can get when faced with such critical differences. Before that rough patch, and especially after May 2013, my wife has always been a loving, caring, supporting, always there connected partner. We did everything together, had fun, long talks, everything, and as far as I could tell, to me the relationship was perfect until this whole thing came out. On the path forward for me, guys, for real, I am well aware of where I am standing. I know what she did to me. I know the word used to describe males in my situation. No need to try to convince me on her. I got no desire for R and am thousands of miles away from forgiveness or rug sweeping. Please, no need to keep rubbing it on my face. On the debate of moral and or legal obligations towards the kids, to me, this is a non-issue. These kids are innocent victims too, and even though they are also giant reminders of what happened, I love them. They are the source of the happiest moments of my life, and I am dead set on keeping loving and supporting them as best as I can. Sure, I may regret this decision once they become teenagers and start treating me like SHT, but worth the risk. You just don't divorce kids. No point in trying to sway me away from this thought. This is set in stone. Coming up next, she wrote me a letter on Saturday, the day after the confrontation. She wrote me a letter. It's fairly long, and I'm only giving you the main ideas, at times paraphrasing due to removal of unnecessary or too personal details. Most of it should be read as her talking to me. My comments are on parenthesis. Again, this is not a word-by-word transcription. Just the main points. She starts by apologizing and acknowledging she made terrible choices without consulting me, acknowledges she destroyed me and can't look me in the eye, how ashamed she is, and can't even imagine how much damage and pain she has caused me. That knowing me, she should have known this would never stay in the past. Then says, if you want to know the truth, if you really want to know it, here it is. The beginning was no different from any story that starts badly. You and me having problems at home, each day worse than the previous one, and a cunning man, a manipulative player trying to make me feel perfect and saying how badly mistreated he was at home. And I believed it. Our problems at home grew, and he kept saying how I deserved better, and I believed him. And then you think you feel something for someone else, and I started talking about separation, and I fell. I tried to start a relationship. Then I realized it was wrong and things were not as they said it. Who said it? Who said what? And any attempt of a relationship that could have existed ended, and as two grown adults we remained as friends. Some parts of this section are written in third person, clearly by someone not ready to own it, someone who can't reconcile her perceived values with her actions. After a while, I decided to make an effort and work things between us. You asked me why I suddenly changed, why I decided to put extra effort between us, and it wasn't because you were the convenient one like you say. It was because I realized I loved you and I missed us. And yes, all this is mostly my fault, but you know you weren't as nice as you like to remember. You know how you made me feel, how relentless and humiliating you were, how critical of me you were, but I loved you. I give her this. I can be a PIA when I'm not okay with something. My superpower is knowing which exact buttons to press to make anyone feel like SHT. Never used it intentionally, but it happened, and then you said XXX and did XXX, and it was then I realized I never wanted to be with anyone else but you for the rest of my life. That's when I knew you really loved me and wanted me for life despite your difficult ways. She describes the thing I did which prompted the 180 change and ended for good the rough patch. I remember that, and I was happy, and yes, the other man and I kept being friends. He knew you and I were back at our best, and he seemed like a good person who understood I didn't want a relationship like the one he offered. My biggest relationship at work was in fact with subordinate Dash. He was there when you and I were bad, when I attempted and then ended the relationship with other man. He was the one trying to open my eyes on other man, always saying he was not the person who I thought he was. All this time the other man kept giving me ideas. He suggested the changes on XX and XX, and I was good at work, growing and making good choices, and I won't lie, They are boosting your ego and making you feel special. Always felt good. Again, who's they? Other man? Then you and I started having problems again. I don't know if you remember, obviously, like any routine it becomes tedious, and let us say back then I wasn't mature enough not to care and you were not conscious enough to know when to stop pushing, and that honeymoon, we had come to an end. I have no recollection of this, gaslighting maybe. This was the few months after the 180 and before deciding to have kids. Makes me think the EA and possibly the PA reignited. Got to dig further, then we started talking about forming a family and everything complicated. You remember we started trying and then went to OBGYN, tests were made and we went to the other doctor and we both saw in his face there was no good news. I remember it differently as stated in my previous post, gaslighting, or maybe since women and men perceive the world differently she saw something I didn't, who knows, and we decided to keep trying and as time passed we started to feel bad. By the time she agreed to have kids, I had been asking for it for at least 3 to 4 years with her always saying we weren't ready yet. I do remember feeling anxious about not getting pregnant since I knew I was the one with the problem, and we were poor back then, we didn't have money. True, we were in a bad financial situation, IVF would have been out of the question back then. That's when I made the choice. I know you think I say this to justify myself, to lie. I know you want me to say I did it because I am a 304, but this is what it is. I made the choice to try it. We were obsessed with tracking and I knew which day, which exact moment to do it. And I knew that a hold has kids and wasn't hard to convince. I was foolish and made impulsive decisions and never thought of the consequences. All I wanted was to be a mother and you to be a father. And when it happened, we were the happiest people in the world. Our world was complete, and everything revolved around our family. Talks about the pregnancy and how every night she had nightmares. What if she finds out what I did? What if our boy is born and he doesn't want him? Then talks about how she was remorseful and trying to forgive herself for what she did and her heart melting when the kid was born and she saw me with him. Addresses some things I said during the confrontation in a very convincing way. Says after getting pregnant she was never with anyone else but me. This last comment along with the routine before trying to conceive makes me think seasons 1 and 2 were the same and only, without any breaks. Gotta digs further. Then goes to talk about the other man always suspecting the kid was his but never asking and then learning why. The other man was already effing half the office. Always had multiple things going on at the same time. Then you wanted a second kid. You kept saying we were getting older and kid 1 had no family around his age and how all the family he knew would be dead by the time he reached our age. And you know I didn't want it. You know I didn't want a second child. I was happy the way we were, but you kept insisting and I went into panic. What if you started questioning why we couldn't get pregnant this time? What if you went to get another test done? What if you started getting doubts? And I did the stupidest thing I could have ever done, but I cannot call it that way because that is my dear kid too, and I think that's why I spoil him so much and let him do everything he wants with me. I feel guilty. Guilty for never wanting him, guilty for all the sleepless, sad, crying nights I had hating him while I was pregnant, but I gave you what you wanted, a second son and a life buddy for kid 1 inch, and I knew by then the other man wasn't a good person but didn't want to complicate things further by getting someone else involved. I was in panic talks about learning that other man's wife was pregnant and things starting to complicate, how other man's wife knew the other man was a serial cheater and certain he had an affair going on, but it wasn't with my wayward, was someone else at the office, but the other man's wife found my wife on Facebook, saw a pic of kid 2 and found a certain resemblance. Went to confront my wayward at the office, she denied it, calls, texts, threats night and day followed. Then talks about the new president of the board at work and the new auditing team, eventually discovering that those 2 new suppliers were not just random recommendations by other man, he was in fact partial owner, then more fraud by those companies was discovered, stealing, etc. My wayward authorized those contracts and process changes. She claims that's when she understood why the other man was always near her, always a friend. She realized he used her and not just for SX. Mentioned subordinate as her only friend and support during that time. He knew what she had done. Eventually, the other man was fired and got sued. I verified this with an acquaintance. It's true, the new president started accusing Wayward of knowing and being involved in the fraud due to the rumors of her and the other man thanks to the OBS scandal at the office. Threats of including her in the lawsuit were made. The other man was calling her nonstop, asking Wayward to make them withdraw the lawsuit because they have a lot of history together. Claims she felt constantly threatened. Wayward's way out of that monkey show was to offer to repay what the other man had stolen. She signed away her severance package, took a huge loan, asked her mother for money, and finally got out of there. This last part kind of explains her original "they are bad people, they want to destroy our family, it cost me a lot of money, I suffered a lot for it, I remember her being in pretty bad shape when she finally got out of that job," mentioned it earlier. Kind of explains too why she wanted to delete all history regarding that place. Closes this section by saying she needs to keep an eye on them, to make sure they are okay and happy together, since they are the kind of people who wouldn't hesitate to come to our house if they ever felt the need for money or just to mess around with us. The second half of the letter is about apologizing in all shapes and forms. Shame, you deserve better, acknowledging she's going to hell and needing professional help, and especially about the kids. She begs over and over and over again to please don't kick the kids out of my life, to please keep supporting them but not financially, to please keep welcoming them in my house. She says I can keep everything, I can keep the house, the cars, the savings, the investments, everything. She will sign anything I want, whenever I want, but please don't kick the kids out of my heart. This is a fraction of the letter. It is 6 A4 pages long. As a shell, a skeleton, the letter is convincing. It touches all the right spots, matches my perceptions of how things were. Season 1 aligns perfectly with the rough patch, and even though I have doubts things really ended at Season 1, the fact is, knowing her behavior while having an active EA plus PA may support the idea things really ended there. Her general attitude and the relationship I felt at home matches the story. There are obviously missing parts, lies by omission, light attempts at gaslighting, and history rewriting, but like I said, as a general skeleton for what happened, I think it fits. At present, my main goal is to get a whole picture of what happened so I can process it and eventually archive it so I can move over. That's why I'm oversharing here, need input. I know males and females see the world, act, and think differently. What do you think of the story? I have read the letter over and over, dismantling it, analyzing it. Seems authentic enough to me, but what do I know? I'm just a chump. A wayward or wayward input would be highly appreciated too. I know they cannot post here, but if you are a wayward and have something to say, don't hesitate to PM.
Hola, suscríbete a Historias Vitales para no perderte nuevas historias. Mi esposa había estado trabajando en su proyecto especial durante 4 meses ahora. No era su proyecto personal, pero ella era la persona principal y responsable de su éxito. El proyecto estaba diseñado para salvar a su empresa, Bixler Enterprises. Los últimos 4 meses habían sido difíciles porque se vio obligada a trabajar duro. Era importante tanto para ella como para la empresa. Había una buena posibilidad de que Bixler Enterprises quebrara si el proyecto no se completaba. Sara tenía una licenciatura de Albrecht y un MBA de Wharton. Era la más inteligente de la familia. Yo empecé a trabajar como mecánico de autos justo después de la secundaria y después de 21 años seguía siendo mecánico de autos. No me importaba porque me gustaba el trabajo y pagaba bien. Era suficiente para pagar la universidad de Sara y criar a 2 hijos. No vivíamos lujosamente, pero estábamos bien. Los niños ya se habían mudado, y las cosas iban bastante bien con nuestros ingresos. Sara quedó embarazada 3 meses después de casarnos a la edad de 18 años. Durante los primeros años de nuestro matrimonio, vivimos con mis padres. Ellos tenían una gran casa vacía ya que 4 de mis hermanos se habían mudado. Eso significaba que teníamos una niñera mientras Sara completaba sus primeros años de universidad. Debido a 2 embarazos, la carrera de 4 años le llevó 6 años completarla. Fue difícil, pero lo logró. Siempre tuve trabajo y nunca me faltó trabajo extra si lo necesitaba. Después de que Sara se graduó de Wharton, alquilamos nuestro propio lugar. Tuvo ofertas de trabajo de varias empresas grandes, pero todas requerían que nos mudáramos. A mí no me importaba, pero Sara quería quedarse cerca de casa. Por eso decidió trabajar en Bixler Enterprises. Pagaba bien, pero lo más importante, le daba responsabilidad y la oportunidad de avanzar. Sara era una empleada trabajadora y dedicada. La presentación es el jueves en el Hotel Dicen en Filadelfia. Tomé unos días libres en el trabajo para ayudarla según fuera necesario. Al final, todo lo que logré fue hacerle algo de comer cuando llegaba a casa. No sabía nada sobre su trabajo, ni tampoco quería saber. Los negocios corporativos de alto nivel me aburrían. Empresarios de Europa, Asia y América del Sur venían aquí, la empresa pagaba sus boletos de avión y proporcionaba habitaciones en el Hotel Dicen mientras estaban aquí. Era caro como el infierno, y por algunas cosas que Sara había dicho, la empresa estaba sobreestimando sus finanzas. Su presentación era importante para ella, para la empresa y para más de 200 empleados. Hasta el martes por la noche, todo iba bien. Sara llegó a casa con un traje nuevo, un traje gris con una blusa blanca. Desplegó todo lo que necesitaba en la cama de la habitación de invitados. Cuando se trataba de la limpieza de la casa, ella era normal, pero cuando se trataba del trabajo, era meticulosa. No entendía por qué necesitaba sacar su ropa interior de lujo, pero no dije nada. Además de su traje para la presentación, tenía varios vestidos de cóctel lindos para eventos sociales antes y después del evento. Siempre había evitado tales eventos, pero me sentía obligado a ir con ella si ella quería que lo hiciera. Me agradeció la oferta, pero dijo que no era necesario. Todos los materiales y equipos que necesitaba estaban guardados ordenadamente en el maletero de su Volvo. Antes de salir del trabajo, ella misma conducía el coche para asegurarse de que todo estuviera en perfectas condiciones. Tenía todo el día miércoles para prepararse y toda la noche del miércoles para socializar con sus invitados. Sara era tan buena en lo que hacía que sentía que habría sido mejor si simplemente me hubiera mantenido alejado de ella. Finalmente, había terminado. Lo había revisado y vuelto a revisar todo. Todo lo que necesitaba ahora era una ducha caliente y una buena noche de sueño. Supongo que mi error fue que empecé a revisar sus cosas después de que Sara comenzara a ducharse. Pensé que estaba ayudando, pero resultó ser lo contrario. Estaba moviendo cosas en la cama cuando un pequeño sobre blanco cayó del bolsillo lateral de su bolso de maquillaje. Una carta de una farmacia, pero no del tipo que solemos usar. Dentro había 10 pastillas. No tenía idea de qué era, Pren, y las instrucciones eran confusas. Si es necesario, tomar una pastilla y luego una segunda pastilla 12 horas después. Pensé que podría ser algo que ella había conseguido para la ansiedad o los nervios, pero las instrucciones no tenían sentido. La receta estaba escrita a su nombre el lunes. Volví a poner el sobre en su lugar mientras ella terminaba de ducharse. Decidí que quería saber más sobre Pren antes de contarle sobre ello. Por supuesto, si lo mencionaba, significaría que estaba revisando sus cosas. Odio los dilemas. Mientras Sara se preparaba para dormir, fui a nuestro ordenador doméstico y busqué. 10 minutos después, me uní a mi esposa bajo las sábanas. Pasé toda la noche despierto, preguntándome por qué mi esposa había recogido una receta para la píldora del día después, especialmente después de que me hicieran una vasectomía hace 10 años. A la mañana siguiente, me levanté temprano, pero no estaba descansado. Di un largo paseo, esperando que despejara mi mente. Me dirigí hacia casa con reticencia, temiendo lo que podría hacer o decir cuando llegara allí. Mi hijo Joe se unió a la Marina después de la escuela secundaria y estaba en su primer año en San Diego. Nuestra hija Gloria se casó con su amor de la infancia el año pasado y acababa de mudarse a Dallas. Eso dejaba solo a Sara y a mí. Echaba de menos a los niños, pero esperaba envejecer con mi esposa. Ella era la única mujer que me había interesado, Y ahora todo estaba. Si Sara estaba teniendo una aventura, lo ocultaba bien. Por supuesto, nunca la vigilé. Nunca miré sus correos electrónicos o llamadas telefónicas. No tenía razones para hacerlo. No tenía forma de saber qué estaba haciendo en el trabajo o después del trabajo. Confiaba en ella completamente. Ion, ¿dónde demonios has estado? ¿Quieres huevos o algo? No, solo café. No me sentía con muchas ganas de hablar. ¿Qué pasa, cariño? Solo son 3 días. Puedes venir si quieres, pero te aburrirás como una ostra. No, realmente no quiero ir, pero odio dejarte sola. Me preocupo cuando no estás aquí. Es muy dulce, querido, pero estará bien. No voy a salir del hotel en todo este tiempo. Pasaré la mayor parte del día asegurándome de que la sala de conferencias esté lista, y esta noche tendré una agradable charla con nuestros posibles clientes. Mañana, probablemente ni siquiera tendré la oportunidad de ir al baño. Llegaré a casa lo más temprano posible el viernes, te prometo un gran fin de semana si sabes a lo que me refiero. Todo eso suena bien, pero no puedes culparme por preocuparme. Soy un mecánico de autos, y tengo una esposa hermosa y exitosa. A veces tengo la sensación de que estás menos interesada en mejorar nuestra situación familiar que en avanzar en tu carrera. Detente, maldita sea, Ion. Siempre he respetado lo que haces para ganarte la vida y nunca he insinuado lo contrario. Criaste a 2 grandes niños y me pusiste a través de la universidad. Eres un gran esposo, un gran padre y un buen proveedor, y nunca olvides eso. Terminé mi café mientras ella recogía la mesa. ¿Quieres que te llame? No, no es una buena idea. Tendré el móvil apagado, y voy a apagar el teléfono de la habitación por la noche para poder dormir. Te llamaré siempre que pueda. La ayudé a cargar el coche, era tan meticulosa con eso como con todo lo demás. Trabajando, le llevaría 3 horas llegar al Hotel Dicen. Me quedé en el porche y la vi marcharse. No me molesté en preguntarle por las pastillas. Pasé el resto de la mañana en el porche. No recuerdo haberme preocupado tanto como ahora. Me sentía pequeño e insignificante. Me sentía fuera de mi liga. Era un tipo de pueblo con un trabajo mediocre y una esposa exitosa. Era una combinación equivocada. Debería haberlo notado antes. Me sentía estúpido. El mejor traje que tenía era una chaqueta azul y un par de pantalones. Al menos tenía algunas corbatas, aunque tenían 10 años de antigüedad. Acababa de terminar de vestirme cuando sonó el teléfono fijo. Oye, cariño, solo quería avisarte de que llegué bien. ¿Tuviste un buen viaje? Supongo que el tráfico no estaba demasiado denso. Estuvo bien. Te llamaré esta noche. Ahora tengo que irme. Estoy en la habitación 714, Sara. Puedo estar en casa de mis padres o en la de mis hermanos esta noche si quieres llamarme a mi móvil. De acuerdo. Suena el teléfono móvil. Te quiero, tengo que irme. Me tomé mi tiempo para llegar a Filadelfia. No fui directo al Dicen, primero me detuve y compré un filete con queso. Prometí hacer una larga noche. No estaba seguro de qué iba a hacer. Estacioné en el garaje del hotel y simplemente esperé. Tarde o temprano, tenía que entrar en el hotel. Simplemente no podía decidir cuándo hacerlo. El sonido de mi teléfono celular me ayudó a tomar mi decisión. Ion, solo quería avisarte de que todo se ha arreglado. Ahora voy a bajar para encontrarme con algunas personas y cenar. No olvidaste nada, ¿verdad? No, todo está bien. Tengo todo en mi habitación para mañana. ¿Necesitas algo? No, Ion, relájate. Voy a apagar mi teléfono. Te llamaré mañana por la mañana. ¿De acuerdo? Ríe, diviértete. No es divertido, Ion, es trabajo. No parecía estar demasiado fuera de lugar. El vestíbulo, el restaurante y las salas de conferencias estaban llenos de gente, así que pude pasar desapercibido. Había un folleto pequeño y bonito que mostraba el diseño de todas las habitaciones del hotel. Me paseé por las diferentes habitaciones y me detuve en las paredes, mirando alrededor entre la multitud. No tenía ni idea de qué haría si Sara me veía. Lo averiguaría si y cuando eso sucediera. Encontré un tablero de eventos que enumeraba todas las habitaciones que estaban siendo utilizadas por los diversos grupos. Bixler Enterprises no tenía habitaciones disponibles para el miércoles por la noche. Esto me pareció interesante. Sara había dicho que no iba a salir del hotel, pero ahora no estaba tan seguro de eso. Había 3 comedores, familiar, informal y de alta cocina. A Sara no le gustaba mucho cenar con niños, así que fui primero al comedor informal. Solo me llevó 5 minutos asegurarme de que no estaba allí. Tuve mejor suerte en el salón gourmet, era una acogedora mesita encajada en la esquina, el tipo de mesa que la gente reserva para tener un encuentro privado. Sara llevaba un vestido de cóctel negro con un escote pronunciado y perlas, se veía elegante y su acompañante parecía apreciarlo. Conocía a algunas personas con las que trabajaba Sara, y él no era una de ellas. Me resultaba familiar, pero no había forma de que pudiera recordarlo. Había muchas sillas libres, así que no tuve problemas para cruzar la sala. Había velas y pequeños candelabros de cristal en las mesas. Apagué la mía y le dije al camarero que me molestaba por el glaucoma. Pedí el plato de pollo de siempre y me acomodé. El camarero me sirvió el café por tercera vez. Disculpe, el tipo en la mesa de enfrente me parece muy familiar. ¿Sabes quién es? Sí, ese es Malcolm Eugene Foote. Es miembro del Consejo Municipal, se espera que se postule para el Congreso en los próximos años. ¿Es esa su esposa con él? Es muy bonita. No, esta es la primera vez que la veo. Siempre usa esa mesa para señoras especiales, si me entiende. Simplemente le sonreí y pedí la cuenta. Nunca había visto a Sara tan sensual con un hombre antes. Parecía captar cada palabra que decía, como si fuera Dios o algo así. No estaban haciendo nada inapropiado, pero tampoco era platónico ni profesional. Cuando me fui, estaban terminando su segunda botella de vino. Ahora entendía por qué se había llevado su lencería elegante. Me acomodé en una esquina del vestíbulo para que no me vieran. 10 minutos después, salieron del restaurante. Ella le tomaba la mano mientras caminaban por el vestíbulo hacia el ascensor. Observé cuidadosamente los indicadores de piso. Que el ascensor se detuviera en el 3er piso era una buena señal, significaba que no lo había llevado a su habitación. Era una mala señal cuando el ascensor no llegaba al 7º piso, significaba que ella fue a su habitación. Por si acaso me equivocaba en algo, me senté en el vestíbulo y observé el ascensor durante 1 hora. La gente entraba y salía, pero Sara no estaba entre ellos. Saqué mi maleta vacía del coche y me dirigí al mostrador de recepción. Aunque podía demostrar que era su esposo, me costó trabajo conseguir una tarjeta llave. Se dieron después de llamar a la habitación, pero nadie respondió. Finalmente, estaba en camino a la habitación 714 con la tarjeta llave. Ni siquiera encendí las luces al principio, simplemente me senté en la oscuridad de la habitación durante más de 1 hora. No fue difícil asegurarme de que no regresara a la habitación. Primero, empacé todas sus ropas y pertenencias personales. No dejé nada atrás. Revisé el paquete de Preven, todavía quedaban 10 pastillas en el tocador. De manera muy ordenada, estaban todos los artículos que necesitaría para su presentación al día siguiente. Comencé a llenar la maleta. Había 24 carpetas promocionales especialmente encuadernadas y otras 20 carpetas regulares, todas ellas fueron a la maleta. Un proyector digital fue lo siguiente, seguido de una computadora portátil. Tomé su bolso y su celular, que había dejado en la habitación. Todo lo que tenía consigo era un bolso de mano y probablemente un tubo de lápiz labial. Di una vuelta por la habitación tan cuidadosamente como lo hizo ella para asegurarme de no perder nada. Una vez satisfecho, dejé las llaves del coche y mi anillo de bodas en el tocador. Aparte de esos dos objetos, la habitación estaba completamente vacía. El ascensor se dirigió directamente al estacionamiento, no tuve problemas para llevar 2 maletas, y 20 minutos después, estaba en la autopista rumbo al norte. Pasaban las 3 de la madrugada, no tenía idea de que había pasado tanto tiempo. 1 hora o 2 después, sonó mi teléfono celular, la identificación de llamadas mostraba el número del listen. ¿Ion? Sí, ¿dónde estás? Estaré en casa pronto. Eso fue todo lo que dije. Hubo silencio en el otro extremo de la línea. Los vendedores tienen un viejo dicho, el primero que habla pierde. Pareció una eternidad antes de que ella hablara. Ion, lo siento. No preguntó nada y simplemente colgó. Apagué mi teléfono, era obvio que había regresado a su habitación. Más tarde ese día, tenía que dar una presentación que salvaría a su empresa y le daría un ascenso. Metí las maletas en el desván del garaje. Sara nunca iba allí y nunca pensó en buscar algo allí. Por supuesto, en este punto, estoy bastante seguro de que no importaba. Primero, recogí todas mis ropas y pertenencias personales. La mayoría de los hombres tienen sus propias herramientas, generalmente es un requisito para el trabajo. Pasé por la tienda, cargué las mías en el Subaru y recogí mi último cheque de pago. Para entonces, los bancos ya estaban abiertos, no tuve que hacer ninguna manipulación financiera complicada. Simplemente retiré todo el dinero de mis cuentas. Almorcé en Hagerstown, Maryland. Tenía suficiente dinero para vivir durante unos años, pero sabía que estaría buscando trabajo muy pronto. Sara y yo éramos parecidos en eso de que a ambos nos encantaba trabajar. La voy a extrañar. Pasé un par de horas en las cuevas del Uray y alquilé una habitación cerca de Whitewell. No tenía idea de qué iba a hacer. Era sábado, y me encontré sentado en el acuario de Chattanooga, observando la naturaleza que nunca había visto antes. Pasé unas horas simplemente relajándome y decidí que era un buen lugar para estar. Compré un pase anual para el acuario y, para la hora de la cena, tenía un lugar donde quedarme. Era un remolque móvil en el parque, pero estaba amueblado y era económico. No necesitaba mucho. La primera cosa que haría el lunes por la mañana sería conseguir un trabajo. Un buen hombre de mantenimiento siempre puede conseguir un trabajo, especialmente si está dispuesto a trabajar duro. Podría permanecer discreto hasta que fuera el momento de renovar mi licencia de conducir o las etiquetas del coche. Me preocuparé por eso cuando llegue el momento. El domingo por la tarde, llamé a Gloria. Me sentí obligado a informarle sobre lo que estaba sucediendo, pero Sara ya se lo había contado. Fue bastante franca con Gloria sobre lo que había pasado. Dijo que había engañado, que la sorprendí, que me fui y que ella perdió su trabajo. Me sentí mal porque ella perdió su trabajo, pero ese era el precio que tenía que pagar. Le pedí a Gloria que le dijera a Josh lo que estaba sucediendo la próxima vez que hablara con él. También le dije que la llamaría aproximadamente una vez al mes para verificar cómo iban las cosas. No le dije dónde estaba. Para el mediodía del día siguiente, tenía un trabajo. En realidad, estaba a poca distancia del parque de remolques, con el Waffle House a mitad de camino. ¿Qué más podría querer un hombre? No sé cómo manejaron el papeleo, pero me estaban pagando $20 por hora sin hacer preguntas. Estaba feliz, y ellos también. Ni siquiera tendría que tocar el dinero que traje conmigo. Unos 2 meses después, Gloria me informó que Sara se había mudado de la casa y estaba viviendo con sus padres. Gloria no sabía nada más, pero estaba feliz de que estuviera estable y le estuviera yendo bien. Josh me llamó desde San Diego solo para informarme que iba a hacer un crucero. Era técnico en aviónica en un portaaviones. Intentó explicar qué hacía exactamente, pero estaba más allá de mi comprensión. Nunca supe mucho sobre cosas técnicas. Ambos tuvieron cuidado de no decir nada malo sobre su madre. Aprecié eso. Después de eso, todo siguió como siempre. Comencé a hablar con Gloria al menos semanalmente. Josh y yo comenzamos a enviar correos electrónicos regularmente. Gloria hablaba regularmente con Sara, pero decía muy poco sobre lo que estaba haciendo o dónde estaba. Nunca presenté la solicitud de divorcio, y parece que Sara tampoco lo hizo. Tengo una licencia de conducir de Tennessee y las etiquetas en el Subaru. Comencé a frecuentar un bar local un par de veces al mes y tuve encuentros casuales. 2 mujeres se alternaban como mis compañeras nocturnas regulares. No buscaban compromisos, y yo tampoco. Parecía funcionar bien para todos nosotros. La vida era buena. Eso fue hace mucho tiempo, y gradualmente olvidé a Sara. Con el tiempo, el Subaru comenzó a darme problemas. Había olvidado cuánto tiempo había pasado. Tenía más de 200.000 millas. Estaba reflexionando sobre esto con una jarra de cerveza un día cuando me di cuenta de que habían pasado casi 5 años desde que me fui de casa. Mantuve un contacto cercano con ambos hijos. Gloria ya tenía 2 hijos propios en este momento y quería que los visitara. Josh casi se casó con una mujer tailandesa, pero en el último momento, se negó. Por lo general, trabajaba 6 días a la semana y usaba el domingo para recuperarme del sábado por la noche. No había ninguna buena razón para que alguien llamara a la puerta de mi remolque a las 6 de la mañana de un viernes. Su grosería fue recompensada por un hombre medio desnudo abriendo la puerta. Los calzoncillos del día son repugnantes, y la dama en la puerta, juzgando por la expresión en su rostro, estuvo de acuerdo conmigo. Ella apartó la mirada, pero su compañero no parecía impresionado. Norm habría usado pantalones, pero en un momento como este, los invitados me molestaron. Estamos buscando a John Terrell. No los conozco. Me llamo David Simmons, y esta es mi esposa Mara. Tenemos un problema y esperamos que nos puedas ayudar. Lo siento mucho, no trabajo a altas horas de la noche. Si necesitan algo relacionado con su auto, tendrán que ir a la tienda. Esto provocó varias miradas en blanco y finalmente una respuesta. No tiene nada que ver con tu trabajo, es más un problema personal. ¿Podemos entrar? El interior del remolque lucía desordenado. Rara vez tenía invitados, así que rara vez lo limpiaba. Incluso mis novias insistían en que fuéramos a su lugar. Hagan como en su casa, déjenme ponerme los pantalones enseguida. Al entrar en el dormitorio, dejé la puerta abierta solo para mostrarles lo hospitalario que soy. También me puse una camisa. ¿Les gustaría tomar café? Solo tomará unos 10 minutos. Aparté algunas cosas del sofá para que pudieran sentarse. No hubo respuesta a la pregunta del café. Tenemos una hija adoptiva de 4 años y otra de 2 que necesita un trasplante de médula ósea, y esperamos que nos puedas ayudar. Estamos dispuestos a pagarte si es necesario. ¿Con mi médula ósea? No, queremos usarla y estamos dispuestos a compensarte por cualquier inconveniente. Creo que quieren comprarla. Estaba actuando como un listillo, y de repente me di cuenta de ello. Estas personas eran serias, tenían un problema real y estaban buscando ayuda. Lo siento mucho, no quise interrumpir. Por favor, continúen. Nuestra mejor oportunidad de encontrar un donante es un familiar cercano. Eres nuestra mejor esperanza. Mira esto. No quiero ser un grosero, pero creo que se equivocaron de persona. ¿Cuándo nació su hija? Cumplirá 5 años en julio. Marche Simmons habló por primera vez, y sonó sincera. Odio ser el portador de malas noticias, pero me hice una vasectomía hace 15 años. No hay forma de que pueda ser su padre. ¿Por qué tu nombre estaba en el certificado de nacimiento? No puedo responder eso, tal vez deberían preguntarle a su madre. Esa afirmación fue recibida con silencio. Sentí pena por estas personas, pero no sabía cómo ayudarles. ¿Cuál es el nombre de la madre? Sarah Lise Terrell. No encontraba las palabras. Tal vez no debería haber tomado esas malditas pastillas de ella, por supuesto, entonces esas personas no tendrían una hija en absoluto. Todo lo que pensaba que había superado el dolor, y aquí está de nuevo, viejos recuerdos de mi esposa teniendo relaciones sexuales con ese maldito político de Filadelfia. Estaba empezando a olvidarlo todo, y ahora estaba de vuelta. Maldita sea. Ahora entiendo y pido disculpas por mi grosería e insensibilidad. Haré todo lo que esté en mi poder para ayudarles. En primer lugar, porque no puede Sara hacerse un trasplante de médula ósea. Médicamente, no puede. ¿Por qué no? Es madre, tiene que ser una donante adecuada. Ella es una donante adecuada, pero está demasiado enferma. Los médicos se negaron siquiera a considerar utilizarla. ¿Enferma de qué? Está muriendo de insuficiencia hepática. Le quedan menos de 6 meses de vida. Esto no tiene sentido. Siempre ha estado perfectamente sana. Además, no creo que un hígado enfermo le impida donar médula ósea. El hospital no aceptará su firma en el formulario de consentimiento. ¿Estás diciendo que hay algo mal en su cabeza? Ambos me miraron en silencio, sabían la respuesta, pero no querían decirlo. En ese momento, no quería que se sintieran aún más incómodos. Hace 10 minutos, no me importaban, pero ahora sentía que tenía que protegerlos y ayudarlos. ¿Cómo sucedió esto? ¿Podría alguno de mis hijos ayudar? Quizás, pero pensamos que eras nuestra mejor esperanza. ¿Por qué no van tras su padre, su verdadero padre? Pensamos que eras tú. No tenemos ni idea de quién más podría ser. Sara no nos dijo nada sobre otro posible padre. De hecho, ella no estaba en condiciones de explicar nada, agregó Mara. Obtuvimos la mayoría de nuestra información de la agencia de adopción. Tuve que preparar café y hacer pis, permítanme un momento. Dejé a mis invitados sentados mientras preparaba el café. Solo tomó unos minutos. Mientras se preparaba, fui al baño, algo que necesitaba hacer urgentemente. Traté de ser discreto, ya había avergonzado lo suficiente a Mara. ¿Dónde viven? En Westchester, Pensilvania. Les haré una oferta. Si les digo quién es el verdadero padre de su hija, deben prometerme que lo perseguirán sin descanso hasta obtener lo que desean. ¿De qué estás hablando? El padre de su hija es un político prominente en Pensilvania. Por supuesto, negará todo y probablemente les proporcionará documentos legales para detener sus esfuerzos. Si acuerdan presionar lo suficiente para que él admita que la niña es suya, podrán avergonzarlo y obligarlo a hacerse un trasplante de médula ósea. Eso es lo que quieren, ¿verdad? Sí, claro, pero ¿cómo hacemos eso? No lo sé. Soy mecánico. Trabajo con metal para ganarme la vida. Creo que la mejor manera sería utilizar la televisión, la radio y los periódicos. Los políticos harán cualquier cosa para evitar una mala publicidad. ¿Tienen amigos que puedan ayudar? Bueno, ahora ambos estaban sonriendo. Debo haber dicho algo que les dio esperanza. Creo que podemos hacer esto. ¿Quién demonios es él? Malcolm Eugene Foote. Se postula para el Senado de los Estados Unidos. Apuesto a que hará cualquier cosa para evitar una mala publicidad. El café estaba listo, pero David y Marshall no podían esperar para llegar a casa. Antes de irse, les dije cómo ponerse en contacto con Gloria y Josh en caso de que los necesitaran. Estaba seguro de que ayudarían. También les pedí que me dijeran dónde estaba Sara. Probablemente estaría en Pensacola antes de que ellos regresaran a Westchester. Me corté el pelo y compré una camisa nueva. Sara era una tramposa que arruinó mi vida, pero aún así quería lucir bien cuando la viera. Era otro remolque, pero esta vez era un bonito doble nuevo. Allí estaba su Volvo con una llanta desinflada y un parabrisas roto. La mujer que abrió la puerta no era Sara, parecía que la habían empapado fuerte y la habían dejado empapada. Tenía al menos 45, tal vez 50, y debió haber tenido una vida difícil. La falta de maquillaje no ayudaba, y simplemente se veía horrible. No tuve la oportunidad de abrir la boca. Caray, si no es John Terrell. Nunca esperé verte aquí. Tuve que usar la vieja línea, me estás poniendo en desventaja. Sherry Hart. Pasa, entra. ¿Quieres una cerveza? No, pero gracias. Estoy aquí para ver a Sarah. Sherry cruzó la habitación y se detuvo en el buffet del comedor. Aquí está, John. Mírala todo lo que quieras. Su mano señalaba una urna de latón que estaba en el centro del buffet vacío. Supongo que llegué demasiado tarde. No me moví, solo me quedé mirando el contenedor frente a mí. ¿Puedo tomar una cerveza ahora? Sarah se mudó a Pensacola después de dar a su bebé en adopción. Compró el remolque con el dinero que recibió de Bixler Enterprises después de que la despidieron. Tenía una participación en las ganancias, 401k, y vacaciones y días de enfermedad. Eventualmente, consiguió un trabajo en una fábrica local de prendas de vestir donde trabajaba en el departamento de envíos. Allí fue donde conoció a Sherry. Sherry alquilaba una habitación de Sarah. Cada centavo que Sarah ganaba iba para el alcohol. Empezó con vino y gradualmente pasó a bebidas más fuertes, las más baratas. Eventualmente, perdió su trabajo debido a su alcoholismo y se vio obligada a usar sus ahorros. Nunca salió con nadie ni salió a ningún lado. Sherry se quedó con ella, pagó sus servicios públicos y compró alimentos que Sarah no comía. Le llevó más de 3 años quitarse la vida. Increíblemente, ella tenía un testamento y me dejó un doble remolque y un Volvo. Sherry explicó que Sarah estaba tan angustiada por lo que había hecho que simplemente se rindió. No intentó evitar el embarazo ni siquiera terminarlo. La adopción se había arreglado meses antes de que naciera el bebé. Nunca volvió a trabajar, excepto en los trabajos clandestinos que hacía mal. Sherry dijo que Sarah no parecía tener ambición ni propósito en la vida. Sarah hablaba mucho de mí pero tenía miedo de intentar contactarme. Gloria le dio mi número, pero nunca me llamó. Era como si su aventura de una noche la hubiera lastimado más a ella que a mí. Estuve allí durante 2 semanas y luego vendí el remolque de Sherry por $1 y obtuve $3,000 por el Volvo. 2 días después, estaba en Westchester visitando a mis nuevos amigos David y Marche. Malcolm Eugene Foote resistió al principio, pero David y Marche lo presionaron hasta que cedió. Insistió en pruebas de ADN, que demostraron que era el padre. Para salvar la cara, más o menos lo obligaron a someterse a un trasplante de médula ósea, que fue exitoso. La carrera política y la vida familiar de Malcolm no dejaron una impresión favorable. Su caída en las encuestas fue tan rápida que el partido lo reemplazó por otro candidato unos meses antes de las elecciones. Su esposa solicitó el divorcio y fue muy pública al respecto. Sarah y yo estamos viajando ahora a Dallas para ver a Gloria y a mis nietos. No sé cuánto tiempo mantendré a Sarah conmigo, probablemente hasta que tenga a alguien.